Hi, I'm Gregory Paolini, and today I'm going to show you how to zero a router and set depth of cut using the turret system. So stick around. One of the most misunderstood topics that I encounter from students in our woodworking classes is zeroing a plunge router and setting the depth of cut using the turret system. Knowing how to do this properly and quickly is the key to efficient mortising, pattern cutting, and a host of other routing tasks. The process is really easy, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, before you do any setup or adjusting on a router, make sure it's unplugged. And in the case of this router, I can actually remove the cord from it, making sure it's absolutely safe. Start off with a plunge router equipped with the bit that you're going to cut with. I've got a few mortises to cut, so I've got an upcut spiral bit installed in this router. Now to zero the router, you have to remember 3 zeros. Here's the first one. First, plunge the router down until the bit touches the workpiece. Then lock it in place with the plunge mechanism. That's your first 0. Now the clearance between the bit and the workpiece is 0. Next, move to the turret system. The turret and the guide rod are what control or limit the depth of cut, and there's a direct relation between the base of the guide rod and the base of the bit. The next thing I want to do is lower the guide rod until it's on the lowest step of the turret. And the distance between the guide rod and the turret is 0. So that's our second 0. We have 0 clearance between the guide rod and the turret, and 0 clearance between the bit and the workpiece. That's our second 0. So for our third 0, what we want to do is actually take our indicator that's mounted on the guide rod and slide that down to 0. Those are our 3 zeros. The distance between the workpiece and the bit is 0, the distance between the guide rod and the turret is 0, and our indicator's reading 0. 0, 0, 0, our router is now completely zeroed out. So now we can move on to setting depth of cut. And the mortises I'm going to cut are actually going to be 3/4 of an inch deep, or 19 millimeters deep. So here's the biggest mistake that I see folks make when they're adjusting their routers for depth of cut. Now we know we need to go to 19, so folks will often take the adjuster and move it to 19 millimeters. Here's the problem. We haven't created any clearance here for the depth rod. I mentioned earlier that the depth rod in the turret system is what controls depth of cut. Now if I unlock this plunge and I try to push down, it's not going anywhere because I don't have any extra clearance here. So the proper technique is actually make sure I've got my zeros, 0, 0, and 0. And now I want to introduce the depth that I'm going to cut to the guide rod. As I move that up, in turn the indicator will also move up as well. So I'm going to actually create 19 millimeters of clearance between the guide rod and the turret. And to check my work, I can simply plunge down all the way, flip the router over, and then measure. And I'm a hair beyond 19 millimeters, which is perfect. And that's how simple it is to zero a router and set depth of cut.